Reverend Les and Reverend Pat.
Yes. Father, Mother God, we give thanks for for your presence and your power in each and every one of our lives. We give thanks for the blessings that come our way each and every day. We give thanks for all the many people that come into our lives. And for that, we say thank you, God. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to open this just by a general introduction. You have before you two ordained Unity ministers who actually went through the seminary when it was a seminary years ago. Les finished in 1971, and I finished in 1985. And we are people who met at Unity Village, who married at Unity Village. We are people who also knew Lowell Fillmore personally, Rosemary Fillmore personally, Connie Fillmore personally, and several other people like James Dillett Freeman and Eric Butterworth, whose books you have read and who you hear quoted frequently from time to time. So we have a long history with Unity. And yet there's a pathway getting there, and that's what we're going to talk about this week and next week. And this week, Les is going to kind of outline his pathway into Unity and for the foreseeable time, probably past where we met and so on. But there's so much about Unity Village that a lot of people in the field don't know. Things like that underneath the original buildings is a set of tunnels so that the under the earth structure could be easily repaired or replaced. And many people are always shocked when that tower is a water tower instead of a prayer tower. But I think all of you know that from Sue having been your minister, and she's one of the great ones in the field right now. So I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm sure Les is too, talking about that. But there are so many things about the village. I did tours when I was, one of the jobs I had working my way through, tours around Unity Village for visitors, and wrote press releases for the events there. And at that time, there were 1,440 acres, because I had to memorize along. Now it's a little bit less than that, and it has varied a little bit through the years. But at any rate, there are many things about the village and questions you may have, and Les is going to talk about his pathway into Unity.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's really a privilege to have the opportunity to share with all of you here this morning and the folks that are listening in over the internet. One of the great things about the journey of truth, I'll use that phrase, is that in a very real way, every experience we ever have in life has to it a purpose. And every experience that we either initiate or is initiated for us also has a purpose. So it's important for us to understand that we don't begin school at whatever age you started school in academia. It actually starts the moment we are born into this world. We're influenced by folks who've raised us. We are influenced by the people that we've come to know from birth up to this very day. Everything has a purpose. There's an old saying, very simply, that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that there is a lot of truth to that. That's true in the history of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, in their parents' life, as well as every individual who's ever been born on the face of this earth. So I want to share with you a little bit about my journey that has taken me to this very particular point in time, and in the process, hopefully reveal to you why it is that I believe what I believe. Okay. I was raised in a Southern Baptist church as a child growing up in Southern Illinois. My introduction to religion was quite interesting in the sense that in the church that I was raised, it was an old country church. We didn't have air conditioning. What we had was fresh air. Everybody opened the windows up. Everybody had a fan to fan themselves. And in the middle of summer, when the temperatures were 90, 95, the fans were very active. We had Sunday school starting at 9:30 in the morning, and it went to 10:30, 10:45. We had a 15-minute break. And between Sunday school and when church started, oh, by the way, Sunday school was also for adults. It was not just a youth deal. There was Sunday school for all. And then we had a 15-minute break after Sunday school was over with. And all of us kids about my age at that point in time, about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all that range up through my teenage years, we would all find ourselves sitting on the back pew of the church, because that's where we all wanted to be. And I will tell you that it was also an escape mechanism, because once church got started, we would, one of the first things that would happen would everybody would stand and we would sing a hymn. And once as that hymn got started, each one of us on the back row of that pew would disappear. There was a door just to the left that went downstairs into the basement, and on the back of the church there was another door that we found our way to out. We found our way to the cars that our parents had driven. We got into the trunk, and there we had our fishing rods. There was a lake not too far away. And so we would then find ourselves running over to the lake and going fishing during the worship service. During the worship service, we knew when the service would come to a close, or getting close to come to a close, because the minister without a microphone, no amplification at all, would get very loud. His name was Brother Irvin. We called him Brother Irvin. His last name was Smith. Irvin Smith was his name. But everybody called him Brother Irvin. And when Brother Irvin reached to a point where he was going to bring his service to a close, he would have an altar call. And at the altar call, you could hear it because they always had a song they sang. They had about 4 different songs that they sang that were all related to everybody coming forth and accepting Jesus Christ as their personal Savior, that kind of thing. Well, us kids, us cousins, we were all cousins to one another at that particular point in time. Most of the people that attended the church at that point in time were all related to one another. They may have different names, but you better not criticize one, because everybody hears about it. Okay, so we could hear that song being sung. We knew it was time to beat it back to the church. So we laid our fishing rods down. We put our shoes back on because we had taken them off. We didn't want them to get muddy. And so we beat it back to the church, went into the back door of the church, down the basement, up to the front, and we stood outside, just on the outside of that door going into the worship service area. And once everything was drawn to a close and people were filing out, we would open the door very slowly and slip out amongst the crowd, leaving the church, find the minister, Brother Irvin's hand. We'd shake his hand, and it says, "Mighty fine sermon, Brother Irvin," and walk right on out to the car and wait for our parents to arrive, because at that particular point in time, we always went to my grandmother's house, which was about 1.5 miles away from the church, which was my dad's mom and dad's place. They lived on a farm there, not too far away. And there we would have a Sunday dinner. We'd play croquet. We'd listen to the Cardinals, St. Louis Cardinals, play baseball on a Sunday morning. That was a requirement because we had the cars out there and all the radios were on to the place where you could hear the plays being announced by the folks who were broadcasting from the Busch Stadium over here. And so this was my introduction, by the way, to religion.
And then for 50 years, he did time in the pulpit for that.
Yeah. I'm still paying the price.
I couldn't resist that.
If she interrupts, just know that's normal. Okay? It's normal. When two people have lived as long as we've lived together and put up with one another's idiosyncrasies, you learn to go with the flow, so to speak. The interesting thing about it is that all of that has a purpose. There is a reason why I was born into the family I was born into. There is a reason that everything is a teachable moment. There's a purpose there. We come predestined in a very real way, I believe, to the experiences that are before us. Today continues that experience. You are here because, whether you know it or not, you've made a decision to expose yourself to me. I ask for your forgiveness because I'm not the most polished orator that you will ever hear. I'm not the most educated one that you will ever hear in terms of academia. What I have behind me to support me being here, however, is a history. You have that same history, although it's different than mine. The thing is that after I graduated from high school, I had the golden opportunity to receive an invitation from the St. Louis Cardinals that I referred to a few minutes ago, to go down to SIU University in Southern Illinois to try out for the baseball team. I was a very avid sports-oriented individual. Fairly good in regards to baseball, fairly good in regards to basketball as well. The thing that got me through high school was my interest in that kind of activity, because in order to play baseball and be on the team, in order to play basketball to be on the team, you had to have a C+ average. If I had a C+ average, that's all I needed. So my studies was to get to that C+ level. I wasn't interested in getting an A. I wasn't interested in getting a B. I was interested in passing at that level so I could play what I was really interested in doing. How many of you have, in your own life, had a goal such as that to get you through the life that you're living? Huh? Come on.
Too often.
All too often. Just get me by it, I'll get it done. Okay? I never took a book home from high school. I did a lot of reading in high school in the library. I read Huckleberry Finn and Mark Twain and Frederick Douglass and just a number of folks that were very popular at that time. I spent a lot of time in the library, very little in study hall. I wanted to fill my time with things that captured my imagination, and that was all a part of a divine plan in my own personal journey in life. Ultimately, I entered into the military. After graduating from high school, I had my tryout with the St. Louis Cardinals, which I have to tell you that I was not accepted. What I was told was that that I needed to. You want to say something?
You saw me. He was told to go home and grow for a year and come back. And his dad said, "You're not sitting around here for a year." So he worked a little while for Coca-Cola and then went into
the military.
In the Air Force, he also played basketball for the Air Force, traveling all over the country to do that at different times.
That got me through the military, by the way. But it was a fun time. It was an educative time. Because in the military, you are introduced to a whole different way of living. And you're introduced to national issues that you're never told about publicly. Issues that people have given their lives for, purposely, so that you and I have the privilege of being here this morning. And we never want to forget that, because there's a lot of folks in the field and walking the streets of our country today that do not appreciate that. They really are. They really are. So I spent my time in the military. I was actually stationed at Richard Scubar Air Force Base, just south of Kansas City, Missouri. And while there, I met a young lady that I became infatuated with and wanted to spend some time with. And so I asked, "Where do you go to church?" And she said, well, she and her family go to Unity Village. Didn't know about Unity Village, had never heard anything about it, but I was interested in spending time with her. So I found my way to her house on a Sunday morning early enough to catch a ride with them, and I went out to Unity Village. And my first Sunday there, there was a gentleman by the name of Ralph Ray, who was the minister at that particular point of time of the village chapel. I heard him speak, and he talked a language that I related to. And so I was more than just interested in going back to be with the girl. I was now interested in hearing a little more about what this was all about. And over a period of time, I became discharged from the service. I joined an organization called Progressive Manufacturing. It was a manufacturing company in Kansas City, Kansas, and I joined them and as an employee and became the credit manager for that particular company. The gentleman that was head of that particular company that founded it was an official that was with another company, and he started this company as a result of the fact he wanted to do his own thing. He used to work for Vendo Corporation. Vendo Corporation was a huge corporation in the Kansas City area. They built vending machines, and vending machines were going great guns back then, but they were not electronic, they were all mechanical. And while there, he decided he needed, as I indicated, to start his own thing, and he founded Progressive Manufacturing Company. He was Christian Science. He did not believe in doctors. He believed in healing, self-healing, working with the spirit within him to bring about a healing that was important. He lived his life, and at 69 or 70, somewhere around in there, he got an illness that he was not able to navigate through, and he passed on. His son-in-law, Nolan Thompson, was the individual when I went to work for them that I worked for. And so I worked there for about 9-10 years, and I began to feel a need to do something more with my life, and I ended up applying for the ministerial training school there.
He had gotten married and had some children by then.
Yeah, I did. I did.
He wasn't
I-
only doing what he said, he was also getting married and having children there at Unity Village.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not that polished an orator. I tend to move around a lit'll bit. What'd you call it?
Ramble.
Ramble? Yeah, I guess that's a good adjective. Ramble. So but I got married to that girl that I got infatuated with. We had 3 children. 2 of them live in the area here, and 1 lives over in Joplin. And they're very healthy. They're doing their thing, and going through the experiences in life they're going through. So I ended up applying for the ministerial school, and I finally heard something. I wasn't sure it was going to happen. I kind of given up on it, and I get a call at my desk there at work one morning, and I was told that I'd been accepted into the program, that I needed to be there on Monday morning. I think this was on a Wednesday or Thursday, if I recall correctly. And I said to them, well, I'll need to get back to you because I need to get things clear. I had a responsible position in this corporation that impacted the lives of every employee that was there. And we had about 80 employees at that particular point in time functioning. And so after I hung up, well, let me back up. They told me they needed to know my answer by the end of the day, on the day that I got that call of acceptance. So I said thank you and would get back with them. I went into my boss's office, Nolan's office, and I explained to him what was happening. His response to me was very simple. It said very simply that he thought that I should accept. I said, really? He said, yeah, because he said, what I will do is I will take care of your position for a couple of months until you, in the event that you decide that that's not something that's for you, because you never know until you're there if it's really, really for you. Now, to give you some background to that point in time, as I was talking about the possibility of applying for this, I wanted to get some clarification, some guidance. So I sought out a ministerial team there at the village, Janie and Sig Paulson. They're two people that had a direct impact on both of our lives. Tremendous individuals. He succeeded Ralph Ray, who was the first minister that I heard speak there at the village. And I sought Sig out and had a conversation with him. I sought Brother Irvin out, who was still in the pulpit at that old country church. And I went over and I visited with him, and I visited with Sig, and I talked with Janie as well, because they worked as a team. And the question that I asked very simply was, how does one know if one needs to go this direction, to enter into the ministry? Because as a minister, it's not the public speaking on a Sunday morning that is the most important thing. The most important thing is realizing that the position you hold is a position that will have a direct influence in the life of every individual you come in contact with. Sometimes a word alters the life of an individual that you're talking with. Just one simple word. It may create a lot of clarity for them. It may provide them an answer that they've been looking for their entire life. And as a minister, you have to accept that responsibility and be accountable beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's the reason why I'm trying to be as clear as I ramble through this journey. Now, the story continues with the fact that when I asked them, how does one know, you know what they said? Which confused me, frustrated me, actually made me somewhat angry. Their answer was exactly the same. It's like they read the same textbook. Chapter 5, paragraph 6. The sentence, not the entire paragraph. They gave me a sentence. It was more of a statement with an exclamation point behind it. I didn't like the exclamation point. They both said, "You will know." That's it. That's it. Was I a happy camper? No way. No way. So, I go into, with that background, I go into the office where Nolan has his office. It was just right by my office. I just went around the corner and knocked on his door and went in. And I said to Nolan, I said, I need to bring you up to speed on things. I said, I've applied for ministerial school at Unity School of Christianity, which is a seminary. And I've just gotten word that I've been accepted. And his response was to me, as I indicated a few minutes ago, that I should accept. And that he then said, I will take care of your position for at least 2 months. Just in the event that you find out this is really not for you. And if it's not for you and you decide that, you come back here because I want you here, if that's not the direction for you. But if that's a direction for you, you go 100%. You go 100%. Because this world needs people that are willing to put their life on the line and make a difference in the lives of others to the best of your ability. I'm sure you'll be willing to do that. So that was that morning before noon. I called the registrar out at school and told him that I would accept and I would be there the following Monday morning, not knowing what lay before me. Before I left work that day, Nolan called me back into my office. And this is where clarity sets in. It became very clear that this was the direction I should go without any hesitation. He asked me to sit down. He had 3 checks before him on the desk. Nothing else. He had cleared everything off except for those 3 checks. He gave me the check that I would have gotten paid on Friday of that week. And that was because I got paid on Friday, not every Friday, but at the end of the month. And this was toward the end of the month. He gave me that check. He then turned around and he gave me a bonus check that he had already made the decision to give me at the end of the year. That's 2 checks. Then there was a 3rd check there. That 3rd check was for 3 months of pay. And he says, I thought maybe you could use these funds until you got your foot under you again. There's clarity. The doorway into the seminary was swung wide open in my head because I had a family to support. That was my wife did not work anyplace except at the house. She was a housewife. And all, we had 3 children at that particular point in time. They were young ones, growing up. I had responsibilities. So I left Progressive Manufacturing with the clarity that I was seeking, that put in place my ability to be open and receptive to what lie before me. Now, folks, I need to tell you something. I didn't know any of that was going to happen. I hadn't counted on it, but I was sure seeking answers. Life gives us those answers if we're willing to learn and be open to them without prejudging them before they occur. So, I entered into the ministerial school. I went through the program. I went to work for Gordon Transport Company while I went through the training, because those 2 months of pay and the bonus and everything else was great, but they were not going to last 2 years or more. They last a short period of time. I found a job with Gordon Transport Company in Kansas City, Missouri, working nights, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a night while I was going through seminary. I was in school at 8 o'clock in the morning, didn't get out of there until noon, went to other trainings that were necessary for me to go through, like pastoral care at a hospital, and serving as an assistant chaplain, and doing all of the work that was associated with them firsthand, going in and talking with the patients, holding their hand, not knowing what their future was going to be, but holding their hand and having a prayer with them. It's a humbling experience. It really is. Knowing that one simple word could make all the difference in the world to that individual. I ultimately graduated from the school up there. I had the privilege of being taught by individuals that you hear about all the time, very likely. One of the individuals that had a profound impact on me was Dr. George Lomza. He's the author of some of these books that we've brought in up here. Pat suggested that we bring the George Lomza Bible, that old raggedy hardcover book up here, on not that one, but the one next to it, that looks like it's falling apart. It is falling apart because it is a textbook. I've used that, as you can say, numerous times. It is a library, because a Bible is just that. It's a library of the history of a people that is reflective of a journey in life, the same journey in life that you and I are on. It is a story of life, and it is able to reveal to anyone willing to be open to it any answer to any question that you have. It's contained in here, believe it or not. It really is. Every individual, whether it was from Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who was instrumental through which Unity came into existence, who believed that if you were a Unity student, you'd be a better Christian. They weren't interested in founding a religion. They were interested in helping people live a better life. That's what they were interested in. And they wanted a better life themselves. And they did what they needed to do to get there. And through that, the village was founded. The movement of Unity has emerged. And it's not been a pleasant journey, folks. It wasn't a pleasant journey for them, because they had things they had to do, not just for this, but for themselves. Charles had his own maladies that he had to contend with that were physical as well as mental and spiritual, that are all combined together. Myrtle had her own issues. She was going through an illness, and it was through that illness that Unity has become possible, because she needed to experience the healing that made it possible for her to talk to others, to help them through the journeys that could be, and let me rephrase that could be roadblocks in their own life. So I graduated from the school. I was introduced to Dr. George Lamza. He was about Pat's height.
Yeah, I want to mention Dr. Lamza because he did some interpretation for the Old Testament and the New Testament and several other commentaries. He was a person who was born and raised in the area where Jesus grew up. He spoke Aramaic as his first language, whereas most translators have Aramaic as a off and on kind of thing while they're translating. So he knew the subtleties of the language. And I've taught people from other languages English, and it's really obvious how the subtleties make a big difference in learning a language. And so his interpretations give light to, in fact, the Old Testament light is the interpretation of the Old Testament, or the assistant to the Old Testament. Another one is Gospel light, and then there's a third one that is New Testament light. We couldn't find that today in our library, but George Lamza was his Bible teacher, and his first language was Aramaic, so he knew that the Bible had been translated incorrectly in many areas and was being taught incorrectly in many areas. And so he sought through these interpretations to alleviate some of that. In fact, there's a tiny little pamphlet there, the yellow one, that says why there are so many interpretations. This is his. Why so many revisions of the Bible? And this is by him. It explains it, why he feels there are so many revisions of the Bible. And so many times when we have dealt with a scripture, we've gone through several different interpretations and several different revisions, and always end up with the truth one being something to do with Lamza, either Gospel light, Old Testament light, or New Testament light, or some of his other things. The History of Unity was originally published as Household of Faith. It's revised into, by the same author, by James Dillett Freeman, it's revised into the Story of Unity. And so we sought a Story of Unity from the library here that we had actually given to, and it's signed by Sig and Janie Paulson on the Story of Unity there. But that is the redo of Household of Faith, because it was laying on my desk this morning. We forgot to pick it up. But both of them are the actual Story of Unity. It may be revised a little bit in the next one. James Dillett Freeman may have revised it a little bit in the second one. Are you where you want to be here?
Yeah, thank you. So the journey that I am on at that particular point in time was such that I went through seminary training. I was introduced to Dr. George Lamza that altered my perspective on a lot of things. I was introduced to a number of other folks, Sig and Janie Paulson, who enabled that particular church, the Village Chapel, to grow from 100, 200 people when I was first introduced to over 1,000 every Sunday morning. Every Sunday afternoon, there was a band concert. They had a stage outside where 1,000, 2,000 people would show up to listen to Carl Frankhauser as he led the Unity Village Band, which was all volunteer, in concerts every Sunday evening. Every Easter, there would be 2,000 to 3,000 people come out for a what do you call it when you get out early on a Sunday morning on Easter? Sunrise, yeah. Every sunrise service, there were 3 services. Outside, rain, snow, sleet, or hail. And it was out there, and 3,000, 2,000, 2,500 people would show up. The biggest challenge they had was parking. It was parking. It was because, you can seat 3,000 people. You try seating 2,000 or parking 2,000 cars, you need about 4 times the space. They were parked everywhere. And that was what was happening around the time in which I became an ordained minister. Things have changed a lot. Today we have smartphones. We call them smartphones, but they're actually kind of dumb because they're only able to do what the person who holds them in their hands is capable of doing. It is also the fact that they are misused and all of that. Upon my ordination from the school with 3 children and my wife, I was open for placement. Nothing was happening, not sure where things were going, but I was confident that I'd be guided and directed to the appropriate place for my journey in life to continue. You know where it took me? Here. I was the first youth minister this church ever had. David and Harriet Schumacher was here. He was the minister at the time. He had a pipe that he smoked. And it was a curved little thing, and seemed like he had it in his mouth a lot. But there was 250 people attending here at that particular point in time, as I recall. And the situation was such that when I joined them down here, we found us a little place to live in, to rent, and while here, I was afforded the opportunity to start another church in Joplin, Missouri. Unity of Joplin never had a ministry. They did have, however, one couple that had 3 children, 1 boy and 2 girls, that was looking for a church home. They had started saving their tithe every week for about 4 years into a savings account. Without exception, they always made sure that that tithe went in. Now, he worked for A.Y. McDonald. He was a regional manager. They handled supply requirements for all of the military bases in the Midwest, all the way down to Mexico, north to Canada. He was over all of them. He had a healthy income. He and Helen, when I decided to pursue the getting a church started over in Joplin, my guidance came from Silent Unity. I had asked for information of anybody who had inquired about starting a church in Joplin. They said they could not provide that. But they did say they would send a note to each individual that if they're interested, when would an organizational meeting start? So I established a location in a restaurant over there. It was in a Holiday Inn, right on the main drag. I don't remember the name of the street. Rangeline. Went there. We had a meeting, and they introduced the fact that they had the funds to underwrite its start. So for the first 2 years I was here, I also went over there one evening a week, and we had a class. We taught lessons in truth, Christian healing, By the way, never underrate the value of the narrative in that particular book. It's a small little book, but it has a lot of meat in there. It has Christian healing. Take the time to become familiar with it, because it can reveal things to you. It doesn't take a lot to open a door to make it possible for better things to occur. It really doesn't take a lot. It can take one paragraph, one thought, because everything has a purpose and everything has a reason. I was introduced during that period of time up there to James Dillard Freeman. I want to read these because I don't want to overlook them. Lowell Fillmore, who was the son of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. What a guy. What a guy. When Charles died, he became the president of Unity School. When I met him, he was a little younger than I am right now. He sat on the second floor of the building in which the bookstore used to be. There was a cafeteria down below. There was administrative offices up on the second floor. It was up on that same floor in where the church services were occurring at that particular point in time, where the library was. And there were a lot of other stuff going on there at the village. But he sat out in the hallway. I can still see him in my head today, behind a small desk, about this wide, as this little lectern is. He sat behind it, and he would say hello to everybody that came by. Every single day he was there. He'd want you to know how you're doing, and he'd call you by name. Now, I don't recall how many people worked at the village at that particular point in time, but I would not hesitate to say it was probably 200 or more. But he would sit there, and I walk by, he said, well, hello, Les, how's your day going? You know, he'd say, if Paul walked by, Paul, you're looking good today. Thank you for being here. You know, he'd walk by, he'd call you by name. And it felt like being at home. So Lowell was there. Ernest Wilson, who was the minister at Temple on the Plaza. He's got some books that he's written, a few of them, and some pamphlets. There's lots of pamphlets, by the way, that used to be printed all the time. And every church was provided those free of charge by the village back then. Eric Butterworth, you know, he was a gentleman that was a no-nonsense person. Really was. He was in New York talking to thousands of people every Sunday morning. Every Sunday morning he would talk. He'd be on the radio up there and talking away. Ed Rabel, a metaphysician that was also no-nonsense. He was an individual that didn't believe in the value of establishing assets in this world. He had a Spartan environment in his place where he rented to where he lived. He had a kitchen table, a refrigerator, a stove, a bed. That was it. That was it.
Insurance.
No health insurance. Health insurance was not something that was in his vocabulary. Marcus Bach. What a historian. Every world religion he was an expert in. He taught. If you ever have an opportunity to pick one of his books up, do so. Do so. It could change your life.
He lived within and studied each of the major world religions, which is why he was such a historian and why he wrote profusely probably about each of them. I'm only familiar with his writings about unity.
Margaret Kahn is an individual we won't hear much about, but I can tell you she was a standard. Margaret Kahn taught Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady. There's another message for you that I would highly recommend. You read, you contemplate, and you think about. She was a fantastic leader. She was Canadian. She lived down here on the grounds in Village. All of these people had the opportunity to live on the Village grounds if they so choose. Another individual that was not he was affiliated with Unity, but he spoke all across this country and in other parts of the world by the name of Viral Minto. He's deceased. But his impact upon, he would come into a church like Unity of Springfield, for example, and he would be there for an entire week, and he would lead a lecture every night that was focused upon changing the individual, transforming their consciousness every evening. But what a comedian. He had you laughing all the time you were there. His seminars ran $300-400 back then. A lot of money. There would be 100, 200, 300 people every night and would not miss a session. They would cancel doctor's appointments. They would cancel this to make sure they were there. They did. They had one. His daughter would come in and do the same thing for the youth. Same thing.
His financial goal was to live on 10% and tithe 90% of his income. And one of the ways that he accomplished that, and he was up to about 40% when we last knew him, one of the ways he accomplished that was scholarships to a lot of people. If they could not afford to attend his week-long seminar, then they did by scholarship. And our daughter went through the children's one. Our foster daughter went through the children's one, and they had a real close relationship with Jill, our foster daughter, which made a big difference in her life because it had been quite a questionable life prior to that. And she was with us 4 years and just loved Viral Minto and what he offered.
In bringing this to a close, because we're out of time almost, I just need to say to you, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And the teacher can be somebody that you least suspect. You know, it could be an encounter with another person on the streets of life. They could change your life. But you have to be open to it. You have to value every experience. And that's the biggest challenge that we all have to face, including me, is the value of every experience that you have. It can be transformative if we are open to it. Healing, which is the foundation of unity, you know, is always at play because we're healing our consciousness. That's why we're here, is healing our consciousness. Thank you for sharing and being here this morning, being a part of this church. Thank you for opening yourselves up this morning to listen to me ramble on. But hopefully something I've shared with you this morning can be beneficial to you. That's my desire, that's my goal, and that is my prayer for all of us. God bless you.
You want to pray now? You want to pray? Okay, let's close for prayer. Let's close our time together by giving thanks for the presence and the power of God within each and every one of our lives. We give thanks for that presence and power and all it can do for us, with us, and in connection with us. For that and the development of consciousness through that relationship, we say thank you, God. Amen.
Amen.
You didn't finish.
No,
I think the greatest pleasure I'm taking right now is knowing that we get to have Reverend Les and Reverend Pat next week also. So, wow, that was fantastic. Thank you both so very, very much. And I got so much out of that.
Thank
So,
you.
Anyway,
Anybody have any questions before? Oh,
I don't have a question, but I'd sure like to take a picture of that pamphlet so I can read it.
this one?
Yeah.
We might be able to copy it, even in the,
Photo will be okay, then I can find it on the internet. And just bring it up.
possible.
do you think it'd be
Yeah.
online?
I don't know. I don't know if it would be on the internet.
But I know we could make a copy of that. Tom does have the basket back here. Don't forget, we need to keep our church running through those donations and our time and efforts. I appreciate that. And again, we have Reverend Pat and Reverend Les here next week. So I'm truly looking forward to that. That was a phenomenal, phenomenal talk. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week.
Let's go ahead and just do a quick circle back here, if that'd be okay with everybody.
A circle?
Yeah.
Here we go. You want your mask?
Flowers lasted until yesterday, and then I took the three of them out. There's still three of them.
They're not my flowers anymore.